All right, test, test, test. Is this thing working? Test. I think we're working. Can you hear the dishwasher in the back? Well, too bad, anyways. All right, so here it is. Payday chore jacket history. We're going to start this off by talking about what is a payday chore. Obviously, it's a chore jacket made by Payday, which is JC Penney's for most of it. We'll talk about that detail later. It's going to have 4 front pockets on the most common versions. The lower pockets are reinforced with a second layer of denim on the inside. They are going to have upper pockets. This one's got a watch pocket and a pin pocket. There's a hole for the chain of your watch. And we got a flat pocket, and on the inside underneath is an inside pocket. The sleeves are going to be raglan sleeves most of the time. I like to think of Paydays having raglans. There are other brands that made raglans, but it's one of the things that I think really define a Payday. It doesn't have to, but I like the raglans. They got this like curved cuff on the later models. And yeah, that's a Payday chore. It's going to have this tag as the last tag, and the most common tag in my eyes. And rounded buttons are later buttons. They're more of like a dome instead of flat, like a coin. All right. So when you try to research Payday chores, the first thing you'll probably find is this chart right here. And this tag history is brought to you by Red Cloud, a Japanese website about American clothing. Pretty baller histories on there. Recommend you check them out. But this just left me asking with a lot of questions. And so, but it's the gospel. It's what we got. And so what other information can we find easily? Boom. Heddle article. Unfortunately, about half of it's wasted talking about the cockpit remakes. But the other half has some good info. And so I reached out to this guy. Didn't get anything back. No worries. Totally get it. Reached out to Cockpit since they remade them. I figured they had a lot of info and history knowledge. But they were unwilling to give me any info. They told me to do my own research. So that's what we're doing today. The next thing I found was the Lightning Archives book about workwear. And I'm sure it has good stuff on Payday. It says it has about 12 pages on Payday. And in fact, I think this may be a Payday on the front. I'm not too certain, but it kind of looked like one. But it's $100. And I didn't want to spend no $100. So moving on, we're going to move right into the real history. The early years, the 1910s and 20s. And the first thing we'll find is this article from 1917. Or not article, ad. And I'll give props to Heddle. They brought this up. This is the earliest Payday ad. Doesn't talk about jackets, but it is the earliest from June of 1917. Oh, and notice it says that the clothes are made especially for JC Penney. They are not made by JC Penney. It is made for JC Penney. So Payday is its own company prior to JC Penney. I can't find when they started or where they started, but it seems that at some point they started in the early 1900s. 1917, same year, we get an ad for a jacket. Calls it a jumper, but same difference. 1919, we get this ad with a jacket and a pretty cool map. And don't mind anything going on there. In 1920, we get J.C. Penney buys the Crescent Corset Company, and that's the first manufacturer of clothing they purchase. And so we can see that still Payday's its own company. And in 1922, they start Big Mac, their own clothing line. And I think this also proves that Payday's its own company, because Big Mac makes very similar clothing, and it wouldn't make sense otherwise to make a same clothing line, basically, if that makes sense. Competing brands. But unfortunately, I can't find any early articles about this or any good information on this. It's just Wikipedia. And then the earliest or first easy jacket you find is this one, owned or sold by Durango. And they say, I think it's about pre-1922 on the design and the chin strap and everything. And we can see it's got a lot of similarities and a lot of differences from the one we looked at earlier. First, got more angular pockets. No curves whatsoever. Second, we got these engineer cuffs with 2 vertical buttons. These are different from the later curvy cuffs. Again, all the pockets are square. We have a chin strap. And yeah, it's got this nice tag here, which they say is 1930s on the chart, but this jacket doesn't seem to say so with the pre-22. So Conflicting, but no hard facts, right? So let's look for hard facts. And where can we look for those? Ads. Now, this ad from 1920, I don't think has a payday jacket in it. It's been used for several other jackets prior to being used for a payday. In 1921, it is used for a payday, but ultimately none of the design really matches up. 1922, we get this patent for this tag, which matches to the one on the chart for the 40s, but I'm going to say it now. I haven't found any shirt or anything with this tag. If anyone has anything, please show it to me. I'd love to see it, because currently I'm seeing conflicting dates here. And I'm pretty sure it's a shirt based on the 16.5 size. All right, moving on. We got this ad. This has a couple cool things going for it. It talks about making 1.4 million pairs of overalls in 1922. And that's a lot of overalls. It also talks about that they have multiple factories already. And I think this multiple factories is important to consider when sometimes things seem conflicting or difficult to date because maybe they aren't all changing the design at the exact same time. And I was able to find a pair of overalls with the matching tag. It's pretty cool to see. And that comes from Mushroom Clothing. We'll see Mushroom come up constantly through this history. And here's the pair. Pretty cool pair. Now, I will say, we're going to note this button and come back to this button because that's interesting. I hadn't thought about this till right now. But pay attention to that button. Notice how the space between the A's is. Anyways, moving on. We got this pair. Again, from Mushroom. Pretty cool. 1927. We get this ad. And this patent. This patent is for this tag or this logo, which matches the 30s tag. Interesting. And we also get this ad, which is for shirts, I think. But what's important is it talks about the logo again and to look for that tag. It says 25th anniversary, and that is not for payday. That is for JC Penney. At first, I thought this may be able to help us date payday, but no, this is for JC Penney. 1925, we get this ad, which you can see the tag looks very similar to the one on those overalls we just looked at. Basically, probably the same tag. But this jacket, I've never found quite a match for this jacket. It's got the engineer cuffs and set-in sleeves and like pointed pockets. Same thing with this, set-in sleeves, pointed pockets, same tag. Don't love this ad though. It's just kind of blurry. This ad, on the other hand, probably my favorite ad. I just love how this guy looks. I love what's going on here. And I love the look we get at this jacket. We can see the chin strap. It's got one buttonhole. We can see two buttons on the other side. We can see the shape of all the pockets. We can see the engineer cuff. This is a great ad. We can see the logo of the label. All here. Another great ad, 1926. A little not as crisp, but still good. Two buttonholes on the chin strap to note here. Oh, and they're both this one's set in, and this one's raglan. Another things to note. This ad's pretty cool, but can't make out anything about the jacket. But still a cool ad. Had to show it. Another ad, raglan, square pockets. Interesting pocket here. I've never found one quite with this pocket here. I would love to see this pocket. And now I think we're back to the Durango. And we can see it matches some of the designs of those jackets we saw. Maybe a little earlier looking than some of those jackets. Like when we look at this pocket with the cuts, this looks a little later maybe. I don't know. Tricky to say. Here's another jacket. Basically the same jacket as far as I can tell from Tidemark, but we can get some better look. We can see that the front buttons are shank buttons, meaning they're not attached, like sewn onto the jacket or like riveted on, but they're held on with a ring. But the cuff buttons and the collar buttons appear to be riveted on. And we can see that the design of the buttons is slightly different between the rivets and the shank. And the one we looked at earlier, you can see had less of a gap between the A's, interestingly enough, which I think might be a little later of a button. Here's another jacket. This one, again, from Mushroom. Pretty cut up, giving it the name Cut Mushroom. Having some fun. And the thing about this one is it's a perfect match for this ad. Everything's here. Set-in sleeves. We got the pocket shapes. We got the, the cuffs aren't here. We can't tell on the cuffs. We got the one buttonhole on the chin strap with the 2 buttons. Then we got this mushroom. Pretty cooked mushroom here. The main difference here is the 2 buttonholes. Really go ahead and enjoy this jacket. It's pretty beautiful. I mean, we got to look at this like wildness. It's been through some stuff. But it matches the 26, the other 26 ad beautifully. We got the raglan sleeves. We got the pockets. We got the pocket matches. We got the engineer cuffs or what's left. We got the double buttonhole on the chin strap. This is beautiful. Putting this in the 1920s. I think I might need to tweak this and add a little bit of 1930s in there. But for now, we're going pre-1920s through the 1920s. And the reason for that, and it goes against this, but the reason for that is because what we see in the 1930s. In the 1930s, start off with this ad, March 1930. And this ad has a beautiful jacket, got the engineer cuffs, got the double chin strap. A little curve it looks like on this pocket on the bottom. Interesting, right? Boom, matches this jacket right here. And this jacket, we can see has less gap on the A. Maybe those buttons we saw in those overalls were a little later. Maybe that tag can be 30s. It's hard to say. All of this is hard to say, right? But we can see we got a little curve on the pockets. We got the engineer cuff. We got the double chin strap. Beautiful. Matches everywhere. Boom, boom, boom. We got the raglan. Everything matches. Oh, and while we're here, let's talk about the different types of stripes. I didn't really understand the different types of stripes for a while. I thought these were all hickory. Turns out they're not. Nah, hickory's like a 60% blue, 30% or 40% white. Liberty's this cool pattern. And then Express Stripe's a solid 50-50. So I'm going to put that in the 1930s. You're going to see that gap there and be like, Levi, why is there a gap there? You missed a spot. No, we're coming back to that. We'll get there later. We'll see that happen a few times. 1932, we get this ad. This ad is the first Super Payday ad, and I just love the vibe of this ad. It's crisp with this, like the city in the background or town or whatever. We got it going on, everything going on here. And what's special about Super Payday is it's the start of Sanfordization. Sanfordization is like a shrinking process for denim mostly, but it can be used on other fabrics, I'm sure. But you'll see it mostly on denim. And like denim from earlier time periods, like 30s through 50s, you'll see it talked about a lot. I'm going to get myself some water. All right. Now, so Sanfordization was invented in 1930. And so seeing it advertised in 32 makes a lot of sense. That like it got invented and then took a little while to get rolled out, and they got it out as quickly as possible. And so boom, Sanfordization, Super Payday. And so what do we get with that? We get a Super Payday jacket. And here it is. It looks just like that hickory one we just looked at, but in denim. And there's a few little differences. We get this cool tag here. It's the biggest difference. We get these 8-ounce buttons, which are pretty cool. But those are the main things. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to say it. The pin pocket will flip sides so much throughout history, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with it. I tried to track it some, tried to make sense of it, but I got nothing for it. See, boom. We move sides. Now, this jacket looks, besides that, basically identical. I don't really see anything different to tell me it's later, besides the fact that this tag has the registered U.S. Patent Office on it when this one does not. So I'm under the impression that this one came out a tiny bit later. Not a lot, but probably later. So I'm putting those both in the 30s. Boom, boom. And then we got a gap here. We'll come back to it. This jacket, only here because I like these painted in buttons. Moving on. Another Super Payday. The thing to note on this Super Payday that's different than the others, no chin strap. Different buttons, different tag. Unfortunately, pretty beat up. That's okay. But we still have the slight curve. And then we hit another super payday. This one's very different. We can see that we have the full curve on the pockets. We're looking much later. Still flat buttons. Got a different super payday tag. And this one, interestingly enough, has set-in sleeves. Why? I don't know. And our cuffs have gone from the engineer style to the curve. Another super payday. Same jacket, besides this one has the raglan sleeves. Oh, and we've gone from a flat pocket to a snap pocket, interestingly enough. But the real difference on this one's the raglan. And here's the set-in hickory. Unfortunately, the pictures are trash. Oh, and the buttons are different on these two. We've gone to rounded buttons. These pictures are trash. I apologize, but I found it on a horrible video, but it's the only one I could find of this jacket. Moving on, so we don't have to look at that anymore. Here's another of the same jacket we saw earlier, but with slightly different buttons and in beautiful condition. We get to see the tag here, or the flasher, whatever you want to call that. Shout outs to Marvin's Vintage has some really good pieces. And that Marvin's jacket really matches up beautiful with this super payday ad. We've got the same curved pockets. We've got the snap pocket. We've got the pin pocket in the same spot. We've got the raglan. It's just a match. And the end of super payday, as far as I can find, the last ad I found was in 1942. Now, is that the last of it being made? Hard to say. But I think the 32 to 42 ad range is a good guide on figuring out when they were made. Boom, a boom. Sorry, I gotta do it. And now we can see how we're comparing. We've put this one a little earlier. We've agreed. We've added things. We've added 3 tags that weren't on there. And we're saying that this tag is probably earlier. And another thing I want to say on this tag being earlier is when we look at it compared to like these 50s tags and these later 40s tags, it doesn't look like it was made on the same machine. Like these look printed, where these are like woven in or stitched. I don't know how to word that, but like stitched in lettering. And this, like look, this tag really just matches these tags. Like it looked like it's made on the same machine. Moving on. 1939, we get this fluff piece article. I don't think I ever even read the whole thing. Talks about super payday. 1940s, Blue Shield in World War II. So I think this jacket is a great example of the early 40s. First, we get this blue shield that I like to call it the Blue Shield, and this tag is one of the more common tags. Like, it's not as common as the later tags, obviously, because it's an older piece, but this Blue Shield was used for a long time. We have war buttons or donut buttons because of metal rationings. As far as I can tell, 42 to 45 is like the most of the metal rationings, but it can be a little before and maybe a little after. I don't know. But as far as I can tell, 42 to 45 is the peak of it. And so I'm going to call these early to mid 40s jackets normally, but I think it's earlier in the 40s mostly. So we can see we've rationed the metal down to the point we've removed the double button on the cuff to one button with 2 holes. We have reduced our denim usage. We moved 3 top pockets. We've undone the reinforcement of the pocket. These are very basic jackets. Here's another example of the war jacket. Silver or gold buttons. Tag is on the inside of the collar. Another war one, silver buttons, not war buttons. Another one, and the real difference on this one is it's got snaps on the cuffs, and there's 2 different ones I found. This cool design and then like a murdered out one. We have this, which I'm assuming this is post-war. We're back to having all the pieces here. We have a snap pocket. We got the like brassy looking ones. And then this one, same jacket, but I just thought that this pocket being angled was kind of cool. I don't know what's really going on there. I don't know if someone's drunk or on purpose. Here's a hickory one of the same jacket. I think we skipped something. Yeah. So here it's helping us date the blue shield tag. Is one of these pair of overalls still with the flasher. It says 1947 copyright. So like these were made in 47 or after 47, I would guess. Pretty cool to see. Here's another one, another flasher. Looks to say 41, but it's a lot harder for me to make out. The receipt in the pocket shows it was bought in 45, interestingly enough. So somewhere between 41 and 45, I would say. And so this tag comes from that area. And we can see we got the blacked out war buttons. Here's a pretty rare tag. It's out there, but you see this less often, the safety flap tag. It's primarily, I think, on overalls for this big like flap over all your pocket, but it will be on ones with the snap pocket sometimes. 41 has some pretty useless ads for us. This guy's got some swag, but he's a little too hard to read anymore. This guy, not so much. This ad's okay. I haven't been able to find any 40s jackets with this snap pocket like this, really. I mean, yeah. Same with this jacket, same jacket, but I haven't found an exact match. Same with this jacket. It's harder to read, but similar jacket. And then we hit the 50s and 60s. I didn't put a title here. First ad is this guy, and he's got a weird face on because I don't know what's going on with this pocket. If anyone has seen this jacket pocket, let me know. I'd love to see it. Here's a blanket-lined one. I've never found an exact match for this jacket with the smaller flat pocket, but still cool to see. Then we hit this 1951 ad, and this has a few things that I think are interesting. First, it has the shield, it looks like, on the tag for the logo in my eyes. It's kind of hard to make out, but I'm pretty sure that's the shield still being used in 51. And the pocket has this top on it that looks like a roof, so I call this the house pocket. But this is interesting, and I found a jacket that really well matches that, which is this one here. It's got the house pocket, it's got the shield, it's got raglan, and this I think says 49 on the flasher, but again, it's really hard for me to make out. And when we look at them, it looks like a match made in heaven. Moving right on, we can put those on the chart. Now, I am guessing safety flaps just 40s. It could be early 50s, but I don't know why I picked it, but in my head it's 40s. You gotta deal with it. In 51, we get a similar guy, maybe the same guy, in another weird jacket. Can't really make anything out. 53, we get this ad. Same stuff as we've seen. Raglan, snap pocket, curve pockets. 56, we get this one, which has a house pocket, and then a blanket line, which has two flat pockets. Interesting. I will say there's a lot of ads with house pockets, and not a lot of house pockets out there as far as jackets I've seen. I find this unusual. Think maybe they just had the same jacket that they used for photo shoots for a while, but I'm not really sure why that is. Again, here's another ad with a house pocket, 59, raglan house pocket. Now let's talk about actual jackets. Here's a 50s jacket. We have a yellow red bar logo or patch, tag, whatever I should call that. I've probably used every word. It looks very similar to all the jackets we've seen at this point, so we'll just move right along. Here it is in hickory. We can see that the tag is slightly different. This one has them stacked. This one has them side by side. So minor variance in tag. Here's the same thing. And then this is just the yellow bar. My bad. So this is a different jacket in the fact that it has the yellow bar tag. Otherwise, I think it's basically the same jacket. I don't really see large differences. Here is what I think is the last real run of them, or last design for most of them. It is a set-in sleeve with just the yellow bar patch. This one was mine at one point. Sorry, dude, that flip. Moving right along. Here's an ad in 1960 with a house pocket and raglan. Very interesting. I don't know what to make of that, honestly. I just don't. 63, we get this. We get this in the first JC Penney winter catalog. It's got set-in sleeves. It's got the same things we've been seeing. And then 63, 64, we get this one from the same like JC Penney catalogs. Now, when I zoom in and look at this, I think this is the yellow bar. And this, along with the set-in sleeves mostly being on just yellow bars, makes me think that it goes, this yellow-red came before yellow. Just looking at like the construction over time, I think that's the way it be. And here is a match for the 63, 64 jacket. And if we try to move beyond 64 in the catalog, we start seeing an unnamed jacket, which doesn't look very Payday to me, with its like angular pockets, unless they're pulling out some real old stuff, but I never remember seeing that pocket. And then in 66, we see the same ad as before, this picture, but they have covered up the Payday with a Big Mac logo. And so that is the end of Payday, as far as I can tell, is around 64. At least for advertisement. I'm sure they were in stores for a few years after that. But regardless, now let's talk about some blanket lines. So here's a blanket line I found. I don't know. It looks to have similar to a Troy lining in it. And then here's another blanket line that looks to have a very different lining. And I don't know what the reasoning on that is, because like this looks like it'd be a later lining in my eyes, because it looks like they cheaped out compared to this lining. But ultimately, it's hard to tell, especially considering the tags are opposite of what I was saying. So I don't know what's going on with the linings the best. Another thing to note is most of the later blanket lines have these red buttonholes, and I'm just not a fan of that. And the corduroy collar I'm fine with. I mess with the corduroy collar, but red buttons I'm not as much. But you can see these both match this jacket in the 56 ad. Not much more to say on that. So here we are with our ad, our timeline as best as I can make it out so far. I've put these in the 50s, and I've put these in 50s and 60s because it's kind of hard to say. And so we're looking pretty fleshed out. We're looking pretty awesome. Let's compare how we are. We've brought this into question. Maybe I turn that to 30s. I don't know. That button, the button has me questioning now. It might be 30s. It might be to the 30s. This is definitely a 30s. I would need to see something else with this tag, I think, to put it in 30s. Anyway, sorry. Getting distracted. I thought I had this all ironed out, but there's a lot clearly to iron out, and it's just this history is murky, and I did my best to put it together, but as we can see, it's still not final. So if you know more, as we'll talk about, tell me. 30s we match. This tag still not on our list. Wait, what's this tag? Oh yeah, well, we haven't talked about that one. And we got this both 40s, but I put that in the 50s, early 50s. Yeah, we haven't found that. We disagreed, and we mostly agree. I think this goes into the 60s based off of what we've seen. Now we talk about tricky tags. Tricky tags. This tag right here was a little tricky for me. And I got a couple examples. So let's see what we can find. We got curved pockets. So it's at least late 30s. We have a house pocket, which house pockets were all over the later stuff, but none of the early stuff. We have this tag that looks older, though. We have the curved cuff. This jacket's pretty tough to pick out anything from. But then we have this jacket here, which has a similar tag, looks slightly later. I don't even know. I think this jacket might have just had its whole lining ate out, honestly. But anyways, this jacket looks to have a similar tag, like a slight progression of the tag, and we still don't have great dating, right? But then I looked at this. Unfortunately, there's no copyright on it. But then I remembered this guy. So shout out to Marvin. And when we compare these two, I don't know what that is about. Well, I guess that's what I called it. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. But we can see that these match. We got a match. And we can see they were made in the same house. We can see that they were even like the same lot. I don't know what the S means. But besides the S, they were in the same lot. And so I think based off of this being 40s, we can come to the conclusion that these are probably 40s. And then we come up on this tag. Now this tag is on shirts. And I honestly don't know on this shirt or this tag. We can see that it has a chin strap on some of them, and then sometimes it doesn't. Mushroom, who's been our resource for like half the jackets, says it's 30s. And so with the chin strap and Mushroom saying it's 30s, I'm going to hold it at 30s. Next up, we have this really cool logger jacket. It has a very unique tag. Mushroom says it's 20s. And looking at these buttons, they are closer together. But overall, going off everything, I think it probably is 20s. But it might be 30s. But probably 20s. I just don't have a lot of info on this. So this tag, I'm trusting Mushroom on and going with 20s. Oh, and here's a random thing. I don't know how it ended up here. But here, H-Rap Brown wearing a Payday. Hard. So boom. This is our chart. Let's see how it compares. Main difference, we don't have this guy. We don't have this guy. I say these go into the 60s. I say this guy's earlier. I say this guy goes into the 50s. I say this guy's earlier. Wanted tags. I want these two tags. I want to see them on a piece of clothing. I want to see the piece of clothing. It doesn't need to be in great shape. As we saw, some of these are pretty beat up. If you send me pictures of it, I'll give you $20. If you find a new tag that's not on this list, I'll give you $20. If you find a minor variant like these text changes or something, I'll give you $10. So yeah, there it is. Payday chore jacket history. Hope it works.